Welcome everyone. So this is the new release, new indicator release, icebergs. Well, let's start by covering what is an iceberg. Well, an iceberg is essentially a collection of smaller orders placed in a price range or a price level. And these orders are placed in small orders specifically for larger traders to be able to go uncovered, right? So they're hidden institutional orders within reason, split into smaller pieces. Why does it matter? Well, it allows us to spot ultimately support and resistance levels where big money is actively trading. So if we go into the tool, you can see we have a dual time frame analysis component, which allows us to view icebergs on the current time frame, as well as a user definable higher time frame. So here we have it set up for 15-minute on NQ, as well as showing the 5-minute, which is the current time frame. We also have two detection modes, time scatter, which ultimately will just show you over a time range where the orders have been placed at a specific price level, right? Whereas the stepped mode, which you can have on too, have them both together, is ultimately showing you orders that are placed at institutional price points. So it will be stepped, as you can see, 25 points distance. This is also unsurprisingly useful because we know that on specific assets, orders will be placed at round numbers, or even quarters. So you'll notice how the way iceberg orders are represented in this tool, those zones are just as reactive, but as you can see, time scatter mode is recommended because it's going to give you much more precision and realistic levels based on the order books. You can also see we have strength tiers. So we'll have different shapes and different colors representing minimum 4 orders making up that iceberg, or 9+ orders for the stronger, larger accumulation icebergs. And there are a few other settings that you can tweak yourselves, but the default, as usual with all our tools, is how I'm using it. So you have minimum volume required to warrant printing the iceberg. You also have volume spike percentage, so to know the density comparatively to the surrounding price range. But these are things that you can just leave as is because they're optimized for the tool. So it's running on the theme of plug in and play with a lot of these tools. You can also see that you can have some other configurations. We want small bubbles because that's going to show you, of course, the smaller orders that make up the icebergs. If we're showing a collection of large orders, it's already veering into the territory of, is this even an iceberg if they don't care if they're seen or not, right? So yeah, keeping it as is. You can also show only untested levels, so fresh levels. Yeah, like you can see down here, this is totally untested down here, as is this one. Yeah. And you can show only the most recent tested icebergs to know if we've just hit one. Yeah. You can also see the intuitive color coding system. So you not only have the shapes, so the regular orders, so the 4+ and the 9+ as the strong. On the current time frame is circles, and these are triangles. If you zoom in, you can see the shape better. And the higher time frame, of course, different shapes. But typically, I'm just treating most of them all the same, right? If it's an iceberg, I care about it. And then, of course, you have the different types of order flow color coded. But for example, you might have an ask iceberg, yes, which typically would suggest selling, right? Or if it's above price, sell limits, yeah. But you might have selling below price, which is a sell stop. And so this is what we call spoofing, when you have a sell stop below price, because it's suggesting that's bearish, and to expect that to be a sell stop order to open a sell position on a breakout downwards. Yeah. That said, when we get to those, they can still react like support and resistance. So we're pretty much just treating every single one of these levels as a reaction point, because we don't know when price gets to these icebergs whether the powers that be, the big traders moving the markets, are planning to switch the books. So suddenly they'll turn those into buy orders. And you'll notice as you test these just how reactive they are and how that ask order down there can become a good place to buy. Additionally, you'll notice here the info dot section. You can make the dots small, tiny, larger. I don't place it at the level position because it can limit the amount of look back. Just the way TradingView and PineScript works, it can represent less levels, right? So I keep it as is, and you can show the amount of dots, info dots as well. I like to keep it as 5 because otherwise you just get too many dots and it gets messy. And that's kind of it. Let me show you what it looks like when you hover over an info dot. You'll notice that they aren't always at the price level, that is represented on the statistics table. So that's 25553. That's pretty much in 553. Yeah, it's around about there. So that was resistance. And this is actually a new dot, right? It's a new dot because we can't see an iceberg having been formed. So it looks like it was probably formed around here and we dropped after that. The dots that we have had for a while, you would see them actually having extended out. So we had this level form here, can you imagine? And we dropped straight into it and pumped from there. So if you had that insight on the chart at 8:30, which was during CPI, when CPI happened, you would have been able to see, oh, damn, they loaded up. Yeah. Additionally, when we hover over these, like I was saying, some of them are going to be in the right place, and that's at 360. That's around here. Here's one at 356, in and around the correct location. It's good. 344, that looks like it's marking out this. Now 323, you can see that's a little bit low, but sometimes you might even get them like here, and they are referencing an iceberg much lower. So it depends. It just depends. But what I like to do is I like to refer to the dots during the day and just see what levels we have locally. Yeah. Because we know these are very highly reactive zones. So we definitely want to pay attention to them, right? And so how are we then incorporating icebergs into the rest of the tools, or primarily stacks? We know it's a stacks first, everything else second approach with the suite. Well, I'll be adding on stacks, And in a typical scenario, I will be observing stacks. Where are we in the session? Let's say we're coming into here. And I'm like, okay, well, I can see they still want to enter in down here. So we know that the best trade would be if we had an iceberg sponsored stack. Most of the time, if you get a stack with an iceberg in it, that's a no-brainer to trade from. It gives you a reason to expect price to react from there quite dramatically. And with these price ranges, you know that staying out of the middle is the thing that rewards us most, and being able to know where price is going to gravitate towards and explode away from is pretty much worth its weight in gold, because not everyone can do that every day. But we have an X-ray lens into what most traders can't see, certainly in TradingView. this kind of stuff you can't get in TradingView, right? There isn't another tool doing this. So that's how I would incorporate the icebergs with stacks. Additionally, it might be worth having a separate chart with a higher time frame view. Here we have gold GC as an example. This is the 15-minute. Yep. And I'm using a 1 hour higher time frame Berg setup. And so we can see here, by the way, just like all our tools, this is not repainting. We had this level long in advance. Yeah. And just because it drops off here doesn't mean they won't then utilize that again. If you know of tools like Bookmap, you'll get orders appearing and then disappearing. But for someone skilled in reading that flow, that order flow, you'll know that that's an area that the big players are still looking to potentially trade from, right? So just like with this, yeah, little bounce. If you place yourself in the mode of like, how would I trade that in the day? Remember, this is the 15-minute chart, and that's a huge move on retracement anyway for a lot of us intraday traders, certainly with this volatility. So we want to see whether that aligns with the stack, yeah, during the session, and then that would be a what? An iceberg sponsored stack. But as you can see, we came right down here, explosive move away, and that is not surprising to me, yeah, when I see that stuff. So similarly, what do we have up here? We have a level here, come and bounce, right? And additionally, just as a side note, a very powerful tool is knowing how to observe flips, yeah, because the second we have asks here, yeah, we have some ask orders, and what do? We break structure above it, and then we explode away. That is them saying, hey, we have flipped the books. Also a very powerful tool, right? If we observe just here, right, we have some bids, right? We tap it once, sends us up. What happens when we finally fail? That's when all the huge moves happen. So whatever was previously support turns dramatic resistance, you see? And then following along the story of the order books, dramatic resistance, we retrace, we form a buy order, but it's spoofing, right? It's spoofing. Buy order, they turn it to a sell order, right? They want to convince people to go long there. That allows them to fill their shorts. Yeah, you're understanding, you're seeing the pattern going on. And then what? What do we have locally? Here, tail end of Friday, just gone. We have spoof buy order, actual limit sells, and then what? Iceberg sell, it's resistance, yeah. So in the day, you'd see that and you'd be like, yeah, I mean, everyone's long. Everyone on X is long, but God, I can't long here. We got a huge iceberg in the way, right? People will be saying to you, what's an iceberg? And you're like, well, if only you knew. But yes, for us, it's very, very useful in the day because you can see where you can trade to, and you can see where you absolutely don't want to be fighting beyond. You don't want to be in a trade beyond there. You don't want to be long beyond there. Yeah. Let's have a quick look through some of these bubbles. 4146, okay, it's in and around that price range. 4125, okay. Here's an example of where that is referring to what looks to be new icebergs forming at this level, which was an old iceberg. 4125, yep. So they're back at it, protecting that level. Here in white, so it's either going to be orange or white, but here you can see in white, that's a high time frame time scatter iceberg, and that's at 4117. So in and around here, we have a higher time frame berg forming, which could be the catalyst to send us up. We did sweep this internal low here, so kind of makes sense that we could push up with that in mind here. Additionally, you can see on these average volume, so it's saying currently at that level, at that berg, at a historical berg, we have 2.21 times the normal volume for the day, so the average volume of the day, yeah, which is significant. So you can then size up which bergs have the most dramatic sponsorship. You can see right down here, that is a 4084, so in and around that price, we have a lot of sponsorship. So it's support for now. But yeah, so that's how I incorporate icebergs, and they're just really just very strong support and resistance and intention and hidden intention from much larger traders who are trying to remain unseen. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching.